Welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast, where we bring you the top personalized producers, insurance agents, and industry partners, giving you at least 3 takeaways to 10x your production and build your multi-million-dollar revenue books. So sit back, relax, and become inspired by the success stories and strategies of the world's top insurance minds. Let's roll. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Insurance Producers Podcast. Hey, I am with a person I just honestly for the first time meeting in person, but I've kind of followed him on social media and I've heard great things from a bunch of different people, man. So I'm excited to bring him on. A lot of you guys know him and share his insight with us and see what he can teach us today. Michael Cruz, Foresight Insurance. How are you, buddy?
Great. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Hey, happy to have you. So for people that don't know Michael, man, maybe if you could just take maybe 30 seconds real quick, just kind of go back, just how you got into the industry and where you're at and how things are going.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm actually a big fan. I listen to it all the time and get a lot of great insight out of it. Michael Cruz, I originally from Cuba. I came into the United States in 2001. And I got recruited, like most of us, into the industry. I actually was working at Circuit City, and I got prospected to sell life insurance through like an MLM type of company similar to like Primerica. So I did that for about 3 years. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but it really taught me, the sales skills, the basically how to overcome rejection. It built my confidence, and it opened the door to saying, hey, you can actually, there's an opportunity for you to become wealthy in the insurance industry. So I didn't even ever think about joining that industry before I got recruited. So I'm glad that I did.
That's awesome. So Foresight Insurance, how long has it been around? What's the team dynamic look like? What's the agency look like? How are you doing?
Yeah. So I basically started from scratch. I actually founded my company in 2015, but actually, launched in 2016 in July. I can credit, starting my agency to Erie Insurance because Erie had, I don't know, I think they still have this scratch agency program, which, it's really a way to finance, new agents into the industry. And in addition, they really give you a lot of resources as a new agency principal. Coming from Liberty Mutual, the only thing I knew how to do is how to sell, Then you start your own agency and you realize like, there's so many other things about running an agency that have nothing to do with sales. So Erie did, a lot of hand holding for me at the beginning to help me start my own agency, be able to get my office, be able to, find my first employee because I had that financial support from the beginning.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we start with, so when you start with Erie Scratch, is that like a captive Erie Scratch? Is that what you're saying?
No, actually, so you can get other appointments.
Oh, okay.
For the most part, they want to be one of the main carriers, especially at the beginning. They're
right.
Fronting a lot of money and they putting a lot of resources. But we got a second carrier called AIC, which is they do monoline auto. So it was a good supplement for like non-standard stuff that wouldn't fit in Erie, know. But when we slowly started getting more carriers, I think one of my second carriers was Safeco because I knew the rep from Liberty Mutual. And we slowly started getting more and more carriers as the...
That's awesome. So 2016 launch. We got a lot of similarities because I moved here from Afghanistan in 2002. You're from Cuba, 2001. Started my agency, State Farm, in 2013. Got hired at State Farm at 2013. Got started my agency August 2014. So 10 years in agency, I guess. Obviously not with State Farm anymore. So, but
yeah, actually, I heard your story in your podcast, and really humbling. It was difficult for us to get here, but nowhere near the difficulty that you've been through. So, hats off to you because I know as an immigrant, for example, like I got here in middle school, there was a lot of bullying at the time. I feel like now I look at the younger generation. It's now cooler to be an immigrant, where like before it wasn't really a cool thing. You kind of wanted to hide your accent, to make sure that nobody knew that you were an immigrant.
Yeah, Absolutely, man. There were some, hey, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, man. I feel like
Right?
every one of those days, every one of those years that were really tough, teaches you a lesson, and it makes me who I am. I feel like I'm a better father, a better worker because of it, and that's God's way of saying, hey, I'm going to put you through a little bit of adversity, but you're going to be just
Absolutely.
fine, man. Keep rolling. So let's get into the agency, man. So are you producing? How many producers, if not, what's that dynamic look like inside the agency?
Yeah, it has definitely changed over time. At one point, I had three producers. I had two personal lines and one commercial. The commercial producer, unfortunately, over 2 years didn't work out. So now I just have two personalized producer, and I'm the main one that does commercial. But honestly, over the last year, I haven't been really producing a lot. I've really kind of switched my role into an agency owner, and that has allowed us to grow significantly, because I've focused on my processes, the coaching of my internal team, generating leads by creating content, networking. But now I'm re-engaging and producing, and one of my main goals is to write more commercial, build my processes around commercial, so that when I bring on my commercial producer, I actually have processes in place, because that was the huge success with my personal
Mm-hmm.
lines. When I brought in my two personal lines producers, I already had my process laid out. I
Mm-hmm.
have my referral sources, so I was able to plug in each producer with referral sources. That built confidence, that generated revenue. So I want to do the same thing, for my commercial producer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's go back to the old days, man. For people that are listening to this and maybe they've started scratch, a lot of captive people, a lot of State Farm guys that come from State Farm, as I told you. So a lot of those guys listen to this podcast, and a lot of independent agents that are newer into it. What did that put your producer hat on? Because obviously you've been producing the whole time. So that 2016, man, you launched. What did that day to day look like, man? What got you to become successful right away?
Sales, man, sales. And I learned that from the life insurance industry. Basically, I call it the green time. When I look at my day, I had to have at least 5 hours of green time. That meant, either calling, prospecting, quoting, and I would try to do my admin work before or after business hours. So that's my biggest advice for most people that are starting scratch. Sales at the beginning will solve all problems. And like the Liberty Way, they teach you to search for centers of influence, COIs. So instead of chasing individuals, we went and network with lenders, realtors,
Mm-hmm.
CPAs, financial advisors. But lenders and realtors was my main source of business. In Liberty, it was mainly a lot of dealerships. But what I found in the independent side, the leads that you would get from dealerships were not as preferred as the
Mm-hmm.
ones you would get from the lender.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I figure, hey, if you're buying a house in my area, most likely you have a car.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm leading with the auto, there was a 50% chance that you would have a home. So
Mhm.
the home always, I felt, was like the way to go in personal lines, to lead with a home. You have someone that's financially stable, that's not going to be moving every 2 years, because if you're renting, your lease is up, so you're moving. And I can sell you, I can offer you umbrella. You're more likely to be receptive to an umbrella and life insurance. So to me, personal lines, that has to be one of the best sources of business. But you have to be careful with that source of business, like, as we talked about before the podcast.
Mhm.
Um, it's all about setting the right expectations, and not just being transactional, focusing on the value add that we have as insurance agents, which is the consultative part, of our business.
Yeah, so let's dive a little bit deep into that, because me and you talked before the podcast went live about the COIs with lenders real estate. That's where 90% of my business comes from. So for people that are into that game and they've been a little discouraged, obviously you're not getting a ton of leads right now because obviously lenders are probably writing 60% less business than they used to last couple of
Right.
years. What has been some of the things that you have done to obviously, I see it as, hey, this is the time to deepen those relationships and educate the lenders on the state of insurance, because that's the only way for
Yeah.
them to understand and learn that, dude, the days of like $1,200 homeowners policy in the Nebraska, most of the times, unfortunately, for a lot of insurance agents, we were completely not this, not even talking to the insurance agent, of getting a quote and saying this looks good and move on. Those days are long gone. So, like, what are some things that insurance agents should be doing today in this tough market of a relationship between real estate lender and insurance?
I think the pitch for the lender and the realtor is a little bit different. The lender is a little bit more transactional because they just need the insurance to get the clear close. Where the realtor is really heavy on the relationship. The realtor usually is the one that generates the lead and is the one that's passing it to the lender, the title company. So I think there's opportunity in both, and you got to approach it a little bit different. I think there's a lot of opportunity with realtors because you're going to get a little bit of a warmer lead. And my pitch to realtors, I'm like, hey, listen, get me involved as early as possible. Do not wait until the last minute. It drives me nuts how these lenders operate where they want quotes in 30 minutes. And I try to explain to them, like, when was the last time that somebody rushed you and you did something well?
Right.
Set up a process so that you're not rushing my staff. You're not rushing your staff. You're putting unnecessary pressure for not having good systems. So my pitch to realtors is like, look, get me involved early. Why? Because one, I can tell you if there's going to be any insurance issues. I've had people where it doesn't happen often, but I had this like $3 million deal the week before closing. They couldn't find insurance, and I'm like, the week before closing, this is your $3 million dream home. Because she already had claims in her prior home. And then the home also had, existing claims. So every carrier was like, nope. And, I was able to reach out to I called the client. I got the information of each claim, and I was able to call my underwriter and I say, hey, look, here's the situation, right? These are the claims from the prior thing. They were fixed. And these are the claims from the home, but they were all taken care of. And I was able to convince my underwriter to write it. But, I by almost like the last day, but then somebody else would have been like, this can't be done. So what I tell realtors, like, look, get me involved early on. I can tell you if it's going to be any insurance issues. I can give you a little bit of leverage because I can tell you if that existing home has any claims. So you can tell the insurer, like, hey, this home had a bunch of pipe issues. Do you really want a home that has 3 pipe claims in the same year? Most likely the plumbing is going to give out. So, with realtors, that's what I try to do. Like, get me involved early on. I'll handle the whole process for you. I'll reach out to the client. I get what I need. And then I'll call your lender to make sure that they get everything they need. So I'm kind of your liaison between the two. You're kind of like setting and forgetting it. I'll copy you in all the emails if you want, so that you're aware. But I'm taking away the whole process because all the realtors, I promise you, 90% of them, they have preferred lenders, they have preferred title people, they have preferred inspectors, but they don't have most of them don't have preferred agents because the lender is the one that's taking care of that. So what I'm trying to convince them is like, hey, don't rely on your lender. This is your relationship. You can control it. Let me handle it for you. So that's the pitch to the realtors. The reason why we also want to talk to them in advance, because I'm very forward with them. Like, look, if I can get them to do the auto as well, that's going to be 20, 30% less in terms of the home insurance cost. That means that they can purchase more house. That means that there is less issues with the DTI. And so it just doesn't make sense for you. Your client is overpaying for the insurance if they're not even trying in checking both. So that's kind of the pitch that I try to do for realtors and lenders is similar, but basically we're trying to get them to understand that they're, if I'm just quoting the home, they're overpaying for the insurance, plain and simple. And most carriers don't want that. So I think the hard market has helped us to have those conversations with the lenders. And I think they're being a little bit more receptive than before. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing.
100%, man. And the cool thing about lenders is they get deck pages all day. So they understand that, listen, those days of $1,200, $1,300 in the state of Nebraska are long gone. And I'm sure your state, same thing. Insurance has gone up significantly on the homeowners insurance side. The nice part about lenders is that like they should understand it, because you're like, hey, when was the last time you saw that premium? You want me to get to that? That's impossible. Like, that's not going to happen. I think setting the expectation. I think what you said, bro, like, you got to get it to them right away. Like, we tell all lenders when it goes under contract, and same thing with the real estate agents, we need to get connected, and we have a way to get connected. So if you don't have an exact process of how to get connected with your lenders and real estate agents, well, that's the problem, because they don't know exactly how to send you business if you don't have a process, right? So, and I think the process should be the same for everybody. Say, listen, well, you don't have to work with me. Now I don't have to work with you. But if you're going to work with me, you see our value, here is our process, and you should follow that. And if you're not going to do that, that's okay, man. Go find another insurance person. Because remember, before 2020,
Well, I would say like in 2013, 2014, when I started, dude, there's not a lot of people that were going against after lenders. It's very rare for insurance people to go against lenders. When I was at State Farm, they told us buy a bunch of auto leads, buy Quote Wizard and all these places. That's how you build your business. So I did that, and I'm like, dude, like 6 other agents were calling them the same freaking 20 minutes
Right.
when I buy this lead. There's got to be a different way to get your business. So I went with for the homeowner side of things. So we started lenders and real estate. And then everybody started doing that. And I feel like
Yeah.
now everybody's getting sick of the lenders a little bit.
Yeah.
Now everybody's trying real estate agents because
Yes.
they're the new hot commodity. Do you not
Right.
agree?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel like the lenders was easy, was very transactional, where the realtors is a little bit more warmer relationship based. And we're winning with the lenders and the realtors now because is we're dealing with people that care. You're going to find two types of professionals in any industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one that just wants to get the transactional done and very, very transactional, the one that really cares about the client, and they want to
Mm-hmm.
get those continuous referrals. And hey, they'll sell a home to the mother, the son, like generations.
Mm-hmm.
People come back to them when they want to buy a house 7 years later again. So those are the type of referral sources that we go to. So I think also agents need to understand you got to set your own standards. Lenders throw you around because you allowed them to.
Mm-hmm.
You got to respect yourself as a professional and draw the line.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that don't do whatever. You do have to go the extra mile for them, but there has to be a level of professionalism that I feel like before the lenders were not giving us agents.
Yeah.
And I think those are the hard conversations that a lot of agents avoid having.
Yeah. And it's funny because, lenders, they thought they could just go to any insurance person and they'll bend backwards for them. And the new insurance agents actually would. We've had many we lost because they found a new insurance agent that will do all these things for them. And honestly, some of them, they would do some things that like we would just never do. And we just basically
Right.
told them, say, listen, dude, if you're not going to let us talk to the client, we literally cannot do business with you. Like that's just a non-negotiable
Correct.
for us
I
because
agree.
at the end of the day, dude, like I need to talk to the client. An application needs to be signed. The client
Yeah.
needs to know what they're getting because there's no way I'm writing home, auto, umbrella, and a
Yeah.
life for this client if I don't even talk to the client. And that's what every carrier wants today. So if you want to get the best deal, you got to get me involved right away. And that's the only way we're going to do it. So yeah, have some respect for yourself as an insurance agent, to be honest with you.
I learned the hard way. I mean, when I started, I would write a ton of monoline home, and I look at my cancellation now. 90% of it is monoline home
Yeah.
because why? The home goes up, they call the auto carrier.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that the best point of sale to get that bundle is at the point of sale when you're first, talking about the auto and the home together. For me, it hasn't worked where I lead with the home and then talk about the auto later. For me, that hasn't worked. So I don't know if other agents are having success with that, but for me personally, I don't recommend that.
Yeah, I don't either. No, 100%. Yeah, man, that's yeah, it's a different ball game today, man. It's a different ball game. So you definitely have to multi-line. You definitely have to be very careful, man. There's a lot of actual cash value policies, replacement costs, so many different things that are changing in the industry right now on the homeowners insurance side. And at the end of the day, here's how I see it. I think we have whatever 10, 13 agents or whatever that write new business for us. I just tell them, I said, if you just do the right thing for the client, you will be very successful in this business. But if you cut corners and do something here, we lost a sale a couple of days ago, pretty big client, $1.5 million home, probably going to be 15, 16 grand in premium. We got the quote from the other agent in house, and the roof age was 2018. Roof age was 2014, and this wasn't even me. This was one of my agents.
Right.
Like, hey Cyrus, he's like, she told
Yeah.
me 2014. I see it's 2014. The other agent put 2018. I told the client, hey, the roof age is wrong.
Right.
I was like, if the client doesn't respect that, the lender doesn't respect that the other agent are doing some things like that.
Right.
My agent's like, I don't even care about that premium, man, because at the end of the day, it's not the right thing for the client because
Yeah.
something will happen. There will be an issue, and it's because this carrier, and it was 2019 or something, 2020, but then it was moved to like 2018 to beat the mark to where the carrier doesn't ask for documentation or something.
Mm,
Dude, there is no
yeah.
room for that kind of stuff, man. That's what gives us bad name in the industry. And if you just do the right thing for the client, I feel like you're going to be really successful. And the people that don't, man, they're probably not going to be in the industry for a long time.
Yeah, man. It's a really, this is a get rich slowly industry. Doesn't mean that you're not going to make money right away. You it's a very competitive industry, but a lot of things are not worth your license, are not worth your ethics. And I think it's hard sometimes for agents to understand that, to grasp that. So it's like
Mhm.
a lot of the beginning, training for agents is around that, understanding like, hey, you're going to lose opportunity sometimes, but trust me, it always pays off long term to do the right thing. We would have that happen to us all the time where, we wouldn't quote with a specific carrier because we knew it wouldn't pass the inspection with that carrier.
Yeah.
And then the lender would send me the quote, hey, but this quote is cheaper. Why don't you
Right.
quote with this carrier? I'm like, well, it's not going to pass. I can promise you that. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. When they would bind it a week later, 2 weeks later, we'll get a call from the lender. Hey, you were right.
Yep.
They're canceling the policy because, the inspection is not passing. So I think you have to think long-term in this industry. You have to be consistent and you have to learn how to say no sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's a little bit easier coming from me. I've been in the industry for 11 years now,
Yeah.
only 5 years as an independent side, and you in the industry for 11 years. It's easier for us to say that just because we can afford to maybe
Very
lose a
true.
client. It's not the end of the world. Like, we're going to be just fine. But for somebody that's a year or two into it, I feel like what you do the one time almost becomes your identity. So if you do the right thing all the time, that becomes your identity. But if you take
Very true.
shortcuts and do things the wrong way, even once in a blue moon, that could potentially become your identity. So the earliest you could do the right things and follow the rules and the guidelines of the carriers and do the right thing for the client, man, this industry will take you a long ways.
And I would tell you, man, you know, the longer I stay in this industry, the more I realize like it's such an amazing industry. And I wasn't in love with it before, but I've slowly become more and more in love with it. It's a very noble profession. And there's a few industries that can give you the work-life balance, that, the ability to protect your wealth, to give you job security. And there's always going to be a job for you if you do it the right way. You have to master, the whole how to sell, how to explain coverages, and continue to develop, and
Mm-hmm.
evolve. So for example, like we've been using Loom a whole lot,
Mm-hmm.
not just for new business, but for renewals. I just had a client reach out to me about an umbrella policy. Like, hey, Michael, should I increase my coverage from 1 million to 2 million? I jumped on a Loom video and I basically popped up my quoting system and I was like, yeah, here's the price if you increase it to 2 million. And by the way, this carrier also offers an uninsured, underinsured
Mm-hmm.
extension on the umbrella of an
Mm-hmm.
additional 1 million. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what it does. And then he emails Mac the next day. He's like, Michael, this video was so helpful. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and activate it. And we do it all the time. We do it for renewals, when we have the prior deck with the new deck. The video thing is a huge thing that, I'm it has taken me 2 years to get my team on
Yeah.
board, but now that we're on board, we're working so efficiently because people don't have the time to be on the phone and they can watch the video at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. when they get, home at night.
Dude, you're exactly right, because we would see the reports on the Loom of like when people are watching it, sometime like midnight, 11 p.m. Like, you're not gonna be able to get a hold of them at 11 p.m. And then they make decisions maybe around that time, or 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock. Some people wake up early, some people stay late. So, man, at the end of the day, give the consumers, when they want to do business with you, an ability to be able to make the decision on their own end, versus you trying to get a hold of them. So I love that, man. That's really cool. So, yeah, man. So things are obviously going well. Things are a little bit tough on the personal line side, as you have seen. What's your
Right.
recommendation, man, for those people that are kind of at a point where, like, man, like, is this really going to change? Is this market going to change? Are we at the end of it? Are we in the third quarter of this hard market? Like, what's your take on it? And what's your advice to these producers that are, obviously, it's a
Yeah.
little bit tougher?
I would tell you right now, hang in there because the tide is about to turn. All these rate increases are going to be, we have to let them, get baked into the earned premium. Um, we're going to have a lot of years of profitability coming up, from, I think the carriers have learned, they've gotten better at underwriting. They've gotten better at catching fraud. I think it also has made us better as an agency force to explain coverages to, like, before, like when I got into the industry, I didn't even really understand reinsurance. Now I'm really well versed on it because
Mm,
it has been talked about in so many meetings that I've been to, in terms of the reserves versus how much we're collecting in premiums. So what I can tell people is like, hang in there, use this time to become more efficient because when the tide turns, you can keep that efficiency. You're going to be able to operate at a The other thing is like right now is the time to frontline underwrite as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get greedy. And insurance is a not yet product, meaning that if it doesn't fit now, it may fit in the future. So use your CRM as much as you can to X date. So what we're doing is like if we see a claim is going to fall off in a certain year, and we like the client, because we had a good experience, he was cooperative, we're X dating a lot of those opportunities, but we're saying no now because we want to write good business right now. Right now, you want to keep your appointment, you got to write good business. So be very, very disciplined with, frontline underwriting and only working on the stuff that has a chance. So you don't waste your time, so that you keep your carriers happy, so you don't lose your appointments, and whatever else you can write right now, X date it. Because guess what? When the tide turns, dude, we're going to have so much business, and you don't have to go buy new leads. Yep. These are people that you already have in your system. So number one, when I call you, I already have a relationship with you. So it's not a cold call. Number two, I don't have to invest all this time gathering information. I just check your information. So one of my things that I'm working on, I'm actually training a girl right now. That's all she's going to do in my agency. Basically call my X dates, call the people that I've quoted, so that, I don't have to keep chasing new leads. I just keep, working the leads that I've quoted in the past, and I'm excited for that because I think that's the future. I think a lot of us only focus on new business, and we have a gold mine of, of the X dates that we've already quoted.
Absolutely. That's massive, man. So, yeah, man, I think we're getting close to time, man. I want to make sure that I respect your time and obviously the listeners. We like to keep this podcast 25 to 35 minutes max, just to get you to work and get you to back, and then you kind of listen to it at once. Michael, anything else you'd like to share, man, that we may have missed that could help all the producers listening?
No. Yeah, I think that the last thing that I said, I think is that the most important thing that I think, I don't think our job is going away. I think a lot of people are scared with technology, even in personal lines. I think there's still going to be need for the higher, value clients. I think right now, if you're a single person with a car and you're renting, let those people go to Geico. That's not the people that we want. Who do we want? We want the clients that are finally buying their home. Now they have kids. They have multiple cars. They actually need some guidance. They have some assets. They need some guidance. They want to learn now what insurance covers. Those are the people that we should be going after. Everybody else, young drivers, single people, not saying that if they come to you, don't help them. But if you want to create kind of an avatar, that will be the avatar that I recommend people going after.
Absolutely, man. And I will most likely see you at Indie Tech, right?
That's right.
For people that don't know, Indie Tech producers, agency owners, carriers listening to this, Indie Tech is, man, one of the best conferences this year, September 24th to 26th. Colleagues of Michael Cruz, Mr. Jason Cass is putting that together, man. Go to indietech.com, get your tickets. You'll be able to see a lot of people, man, over there.
That's going to be an awesome event, man. I think for agents right now with technology, that's going to be an awesome event.
Absolutely. Yeah, check that out. So my last question is the same for everybody. Michael, I am a big believer in winning my day. That's really important to me. It's a one day kind of thing for me. I don't really focus on tomorrow. It's about today. If you had to pick one thing on the personal life side and one thing on the business side, what would you say would be your one thing on the personal side that if you just put your head on the pillow and you said, man, I won that day because I did that, what would that be?
Yeah, for me, it's really more like two things. One is exercising, but my hobby is cycling. So,
nice.
If I can, get on my bike that day, to me, that's a success. And number two, if I can go maybe on a walk with my wife, to spend quality time with my wife, I think that'll be a huge win on the personal side. And on the client side, it's all about right now of, building the foundation. So if I can build a process, if I can train somebody on something, I'm planting my seeds for the future. So at this point in my stage, everything that I do has to help me to plant something to grow, so if I'm doing a sales, I'm recording that, if I'm teaching you something, I'm recording it because I'm going to be able to use that recording and that training for future generations to come.
Dude, I love that. Billy Wagner says that, man, anything you do, make sure somebody's watching or you're showing somebody, because you should be trying to replace yourself if you want to grow in this industry. So Michael, man, that was great, brother. I appreciate you being on, man. We'll definitely have to do another episode because we got a lot to talk about. Appreciate you being on, and hope you have a great Friday, big guy.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.